today's podcast of Second Chance Coaching. My name is Dr. Richard Lewis. If you'd be so kind as to leave me a rating and your feedback, I would very much appreciate it, and it will help dynamic people such as yourself optimally discover this podcast and add it to their library of favorite podcasts. As you know, at Second Chance Coaching, we focus on seeing everyday life through the eyes of the returning citizen and highlighting the resiliency of the human spirit. I'd love to work with you one-on-one, whether you're a returning citizen or a coaching client seeking your second chance, or you're a representative of a business, college, university seeking to integrate and support your returning citizens in your organizational and learning environments. Feel free to contact me at richard@secondchancecoaching.com or via Instagram at @DrRichardLewis. I'm very excited for the episode that we have today. Today we have Emmy Nominated Producer and Director Ms. Shirley Vernae Williams, who's working on a great project called A Break in Belonging. And this is our very first interview in the history of this podcast. So I'm very excited that we were able to get Ms. Williams, and I'd love for you guys to hear her message and hear about the project she's doing. And without further ado, let's get to it. Here's Second Chance Coaching with our guest, Ms. Shirley Vernae Williams. Welcome to Second Chance Coaching. Once again, I'm Dr. Richard Lewis, and today we have a very special treat, our very first interview for this podcast with Ms. Shirley Vernae Williams. I'll take my time to introduce Ms. Williams to everyone. Shirley Vernae Williams is a director and Emmy-nominated producer who has overseen television series such as History Channel's Alone and American Restoration, and she also story-produced series for Refinery 29, including Shady and Anomaly, which generated millions of online views. Other work she's done includes producing high-profile brand content for Vayner Media and Public Record TV. In 2019, Shirley produced 8 short films for the New York Times and a documentary for the Annenberg Space of Photography. In 2020, Shirley directed a 5-part series for Adidas and a 3-part series for the U.S. Virgin Islands. This past year, Shirley has also directed and produced short films for First Response and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. In 2017, Shirley post-produced the documentary film Intent to Destroy with the award-winning director Joe Bellinger. Intent to Destroy premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival and was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Historical Documentary. Shirley owns and operates Willie B. Productions, a production company focusing on film, television, and digital content. At this time, it is my pleasure to welcome director and producer extraordinaire Shirley Vernae Williams to the Second Chance Coaching Podcast. How are you doing today, Shirley?
Oh my gosh, it feels so weird to hear you read that. I'm over here blushing. I don't know if you looked up and saw me. I had like my head down, and it's just it's so weird. It's like it causes you to, or caused me to take a moment and to reflect, especially like with all of the sadness that occurred in 2020, to just hear that I was still able to create and to do is such a blessing. But just it felt so weird hearing that read.
It's always weird for me too. When I hear, I'm okay with talking about myself, but even when I talk about myself, it's only at a certain limit. But when I hear someone speak about me, sometimes I'm looking around like, well, who are they talking about? Because they're not talking about me.
Can't be me. No, that's not me. That's not me. But exactly. It is.
It is. It absolutely is. You should be very proud of yourself. But that was my intro for you. But can you share a little bit about yourself? What do you want to share with us? Like where you're from, anything personal or professional or any other past work that we didn't cover in our intro? What do you want to share with us about you?
Yeah. So I'm based in New York City. I've been here, I think this past summer made either 16 or 17 years. I love New York. I'm originally from Connecticut, and I'm super proud of being from Connecticut. One of the things that is not in my bio, but I am super duper proud of, is I am a super auntie. And I love my nieces and nephews so much. They are a big part of my life, and they bring me a whole lot of joy. I think that's one thing that's very personal and super important to me. I think about them a lot in the things that I create and the work that I put out. I think that's probably the only thing that was missed.
No, that's great. Super Auntie, that is a gold star. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about one significant challenge and one significant accomplishment from your professional journey.
Challenge. I think where I am right now is like one of the biggest challenges that I have ever faced. So, as my experience so far has been, I'm a producer, I'm a director. So companies, organizations, institutions, right? Like when they need a director, when they need a producer, when they have all the resources in place, they have clients in place, they have an idea of what it is that they want to create. They call me up and say, hey, we got this project, we want you on board, right? And I come on board to something that's already in place, right? And now I'm in a situation where the resources are not in place, right? And that's a part of independent producing. So I am the person who's responsible for ideation. I'm the person who's responsible for finding the money. I'm the person who's responsible for all staffing. I'm the person who's responsible for all the things that happen on the far back end all the way to the front, as far as like managing. So in terms of challenges, like I'm responsible for everything on the back end, all the way to the front, managing the talent, the subjects, and I've never had to do all of this, be responsible for all of this alone, especially starting from conception. So I would say that is my current and so far the biggest challenge that I have had as a content creator, as a producer, as a director. I always tell people, like, if you want to do independent producing, if you have an idea, if you have a project, and it is up to you and you don't have the resources in play, if you're not wealthy, if you're not rich, if you don't know someone who's a fountain of money, right? And it's up to you to get this thing off the ground. Make sure it is a project that you are wildly passionate about, and make sure that you have the stamina and the guts to do the work, because it's a different type of beast. Yeah. In terms of accomplishments, I think that one's a little challenging. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it was super duper cool to be nominated for an Emmy. I post-produced a documentary called Intent to Destroy about the Armenian genocide. Excuse me. And we did this film back in 2017, and it was so hard. It was so hard. I mean, almost a year of waking up every day and looking at looking at images of Armenians sick, being slain, being murdered, and especially being Black, and having a history that is similar, is that it felt familiar, it felt very close to home. So a lot of that experience was very triggering in a lot of different ways. But we actually got nominated for an Emmy, I think 2 years after it was released. So when I got done with that project, that was actually a really, really hard project to produce too, just very mentally and emotionally just exhausting. And Joe Berlinger, who's a phenomenal director, he plays no games, and in the best way possible. I learned so much from him. He requires a game. His standards are high. So it took a lot. It was a lot to create and to execute. But that was a challenging one, at the same time very rewarding, especially years later, it resurfacing with us being nominated for an Emmy. We didn't win, but the nomination was very it was awesome. It was really cool to be nominated and to be acknowledged for all the hard work that went into creating that film.
No, the good thing is with challenges and accomplishments, they could always be at this point in time. So you could always have more challenges, but they could be the birth. They could be the foundation and the birth of more accomplishments in the future. So we're going to be keeping our eyes on you for sure. Where did you? Just a follow-up question. So you're an independent producer. Where did you go to school, or where did you get your training to produce?
Yeah. So I actually went to on-camera acting school, and at the time it was called the School for Film and Television, and now it's called the New York Conservatory of Dramatic Arts. So it's a 2-year program that trains their students on-camera performance, which is very different from theater performance. So we learned a lot of, we studied this guy, his name is Meisner technique, which is a phenomenal technique that a lot of actors used. But after school, I had a hard time getting work. Back then, I think I graduated in 2006 or 2007. One of those. And like black girls who look like me were not popular. Like they wanted the mulatto black girls, like the black girls who had like very soft, bouncy, beautiful curls and like, very mixed looking skin and talked a certain type of way. And I obviously am not that. So I had a hard time booking gigs. Not that I wasn't talented, it was just that I wasn't what people were writing in scripts. So my mom was like, girl, you got to pay these student loans. Like, I can't do this. So I had to hustle. I had to hustle to get a job because I was being a burden on my parents. And then out of that, a friend of mine like plugged me on when Oprah was leaving her show to launch OWN. She had did a special called like Oprah's 25th anniversary or Oprah's 25th something. And I got hired as a transcriber. So I came in and typed all the interviews so producers and directors could create their scripts. And it just snowballed from there. I got in and I loved that side of storytelling. And I worked really, really hard and networked and grind and just climbed the ladder slowly but surely.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So talk to us about your current project, or it might be one of your many current projects, but this particular project that we're talking about, talk to us about your project in development, A Break in Belonging.
Yes, it is one of many different projects, but it's my baby. It's the thing that it not only does it keep me up all night, but it wakes me up at the crack of dawn. It's always on my mind. So it's called A Break in Belonging. And it's, as you can see, because I just start smiling and blushing when I talk about it. And it's about Pastor Martin Thomas. He is phenomenal. I love him so much. I met him. Actually, let me tell you, give you a snippet of what it's about, and then I'll go to how I met him because I love telling that story. So it is about Pastor Martin Thomas. I would say about 25 and a half now, maybe 26 years ago, he killed someone, and he never told anybody why he did it. He accepted a 50-year guilty plea, and he went on to Indiana State Prison, and he served 23 years of his 50-year sentence. And while he was in prison, he did some just phenomenal things. He became the pastor of the prison's church and grew the church organization. I'm also a church girl, so this part of the story is I'm so intrigued and I love it. He grew the church to be one of the largest organizations there in Indiana State Prison. He, as an inmate, was working closely with the warden and the commissioner and the governor to create special programs for inmates that were preparing to transition out of prison into society to set them up for success, and programming that could also support lifers. While this was happening, his 5 sons were feeling the impact of losing a parent to incarceration. They had a really big deal with Arista Records. Phenomenal boys. Well, they're men now. Phenomenal men who I also love and admire so much. Greatly talented. They had a big deal with Arista Records, and when their father was arrested, unfortunately, it all came tumbling down and they lost it. So they this story explores what it was like for boys ages 12 to 20 at the time to lose a parent to incarceration, not know what happened, just knowing that dad is no longer there, as well as what it was like to lose such a big dream. As I'm talking about this too, a lot of specifically like Black boys are either don't have the ability to dream for so many reasons, are constantly stifled around dreaming, and these boys had access and they were on their way, and an event happened that was beyond them and out of their control that resulted to the loss of their dream. So it explores that. It explores the hardships that they endured. And now Martin is home, and listen, I've been to Indiana twice, and I've seen firsthand work that he is doing post-prison, post-release, to support formerly incarcerated men to have success post-release. And it is hard and challenging work that he's doing down there. So we also explore that within this film. And we get a chance to see Martin where he is now, see his works, see his sons where they are now, and seeing them reconcile and build and grow. And I always love to tell this story, but I was in church one day. This was 3 years ago when I met Martin. I was in church, and he had been released from prison just a few months before. And he had came because he was a guest speaker for an annual event we do where our minister puts on a phenomenal event, brings ministers from all over the country to talk on one specific topic to edify the church, build the people up, make us stronger. And Martin was heavily promoted, and I remember the energy around, oh my gosh, Martin Thomas is coming back to Harlem for the first time in 20, that time it was 23 years. So yeah, I've been away for 23 years. And when I heard him speak, I literally was blown away. The way he worked in his prison experience and forwarding the congregation and sharing deep and dark thoughts and feelings that he had while he was in a cell. And this was all new to me. I never in my life had met a pastor who had been to prison for 23 years who was actually guilty. So yeah, that's a big picture about the details of what this story is about. But there's so many things that I'm looking to accomplish within this story, and that's humanizing formerly incarcerated people, showing that they are deserving of second chances. And we don't, society, people who actually have made mistakes and just have not gotten caught, we don't get to label formerly incarcerated people or decide that they are second-class citizens. That we don't hold that power. Yeah, and and to get the viewers to reimagine how we view formerly incarcerated persons, bring attention to what parental incarceration does to the psyche of children. It's bad. It's not good. And then there's another side of this story that's evolving too, and I think that's important as well, is the victim's children. they are, I could imagine they endured a life that was hard and challenging because they lost their dad. So there's so much loss, unfortunately, that occurred through this event. But I want to use this as a vessel and a tool for healing, and to show the world what's possible when we forgive and when we love. Just show the other side of a lot of these hard topics.
Of course. Was Pastor Thomas coming to your church? Was that what brought you to developing and producing this project, or were there other factors involved besides that encounter at your church?
Yeah, so I'm a very, very curious soul. Like, I'm curious about everything. And when I heard about him, that this was a pastor who has spent 23 years in prison and people didn't know why, immediately my antennas went up. And I wanted to hear more. I wanted to learn more. And then when I went and I heard him speak, and he was so rich and dynamic and powerful, and just like his voice was like literally piercing through my soul. And then that made me want to hear more. I was like, I need to know, like. And there was still a lot of mystery around, well, what happened? And I was like, well, I need to know more, because I'm a curious soul. So then I started doing some research on him. The event happened in 1996. The world wasn't deep into, we didn't have the internet the way that we do now. Most of the news that we got was through printed articles on paper or through our news reporters on the actual news, like news anchors. So it was very hard to find a lot of information about him, but the little I did continued to increase my curiosity. So then I got his book. He has a book called On the Road to Manhood, and I read it. And it basically is a tool that supports men in understanding like what may have caused them to get sidetracked in life, that took them off the road to manhood, and what they could implement now to put them back on the road to manhood. And there were a lot of things in there, me as a woman, that I was able to extract and I felt like I could apply to my own life. So again, my more curiosity, I was like, oh man, I didn't even know him at that time. And I was like, this man is so phenomenal. And then I came across his organization's website, and I was reading about the reentry work that he's doing in Indianapolis. And I was like, oh, this is a story. So I actually reached out to him on Facebook. But Martin was new back to society. So technology, he wasn't that savvy. He was still learning. So his wife, who is, I call her Ma, she is just the most, she's a saint. She's incredible. I just love her so much. She's phenomenal. His wife was managing his social media account, and she responded. So me and her started talking. We got on the phone, and like I remember the first time I heard her voice, the first thing I said to her was like, your voice is just so soothing. Like, I just talk to you, you make me feel like everything's gonna be okay. I didn't even know the woman at the time. I still tell her that to this day. But me and her started talking, and then just from talking to her and the way she talked about Martin, and I was just like, y'all got a phenomenal story. I was like, I want to talk to Martin because I'm interested in potentially telling it. And then from there, she connected me to her husband, Martin. And then we started to have conversations. And the more he just uncovered and told me, I mean, like, my mind was just exploding with just, this is a story. This is a story that the world needs to hear. It's so rich and complex and just, it's big. And he always says to me, he's like, I don't know what's wrong with you. You are crazy. I don't know why you want to do this, but he's like, okay, go ahead and do it if that's what you want to do.
Well, you shared with us, Shirley, your impressions of him when he was at your church, and of course what you just told us when you made contact with him. But what were some of your first impressions of Martin when you got to Indianapolis, when you got to Indiana to actually start having boots on the ground regarding this project? What was some of your first impressions of him at that point? And then if you can compare it to after you finished filming, if you could compare those two impressions that you had of him.
Yeah, so when I first met Martin, I remember, and I think that I'm a really good discerner of persons or of character, and I listen to what people don't say just as much as what they do say. But when I first met Martin, he was, I remember him being so protective, first of his wife, in a very loving and compassionate and gentle way, and then of me as well. You know, he didn't want me to lift anything, to touch anything. He made sure that, like, I mean, from him making sure all my accommodations, which I'm a producer, that's my job, but I wanted to give him the space to do what he felt comfortable doing, and for him to, you know, so I let him do it. But I remember just how protective and loving and compassionate and gentle he was, and how he was such a phenomenal listener. He was very much open and curious about me and my life as much as I was about him, which was, for me, was very telling. It wasn't this thing of it's about me. He cared about me and my thoughts and my feelings and what I wanted. And he was also very, and when I met him, he was then very responsible and accountable for what he did. He didn't shy away from it. He owned it, not in a way that would have him in a beat up or have him living in this world of guilt and shame, but in a more empowering way, like an acknowledgement of, yes, this is what I did. It was not good. It was bad. It got me where it got me. But here's what I was able to get out of that. And here's what I was able to do for the planet and for the world and for the cause of Christ because of it. But those were my first impressions of Martin. I still do to this day, how responsible he is around what he did, and how he holds himself accountable, and he's very clear on, like, you know, his role that he played in it, who were the victims, and out of that, you know, he's looking to reconcile with everyone who was hurt as a result of his actions. I forgot what part B of your questions were.
What were your impressions of him after you completed filming in Indianapolis? What were you talked to us about how you felt when you encountered him, yeah. But then when you left, what was there anything that changed? Was it enhanced? Your impressions enhanced? What were your feelings after you left him?
Oh yeah. So I went to Indianapolis twice to do some more like preliminary filming. I wanted to see what Martin was like on camera. I wanted to do an interview with him. I wanted to get into the office of his organization and see him at work. He has this home under his organization, Foresight Forgivers Foundation, called the Nazareth Man House, and it's set up like a transition home, but it's not your typical transition home. Like, you know, a lot of transition homes have an expiration date on it for the residents, but this transition home has no expiration date. Men can stay in there as long as they need to get themselves on their feet. And Martin provides he pays the rent, the utilities, gives you food. And like, he just wants you to focus on getting yourself on your feet so you can thrive out here in society and not go back to prison. But in filming with Martin in the home and seeing him with the men who have recently re-entered society and working to adjust, I saw a human who had a level of patience that I never have. I mean, I saw a human who had a level of compassion that I have never seen. The way in which, the lengths that I witnessed him to go to make sure that men were okay or are okay and they have what they need. The understanding that I saw that exists there. And I think a large part of that is because of his lived prison experience. I can't relate to them, nor can his wife, in a way that he can, because he's been there. He spent 23 years behind bars with these same men that he's serving. But I just saw a different level of patience and compassion that I haven't witnessed before.
Did this project in any way change what views you have of the criminal justice system, or did they reinforce or solidify any views you might have had of it?
I think one of the biggest things that has, where I feel like the wool has been pulled over my eyes, and this is where my responsibility has come into play, especially with me being a player in media, a content creator, me working for these major companies and having power to tell story, is I never realized how much media influences the perspective that society has on formerly incarcerated people. And I did not know how much media influences the policies that affect currently and formerly incarcerated people, which has it's no one put the wool over my eyes. It was my own ignorance. But now that I know, I cannot unknow, and I have a responsibility to do my due diligence and to make sure that the way that I see Martin, that is very, very well communicated in how we do this project, and make sure that the way that I see Martin and his wife sees him, and the many other people that love and respect and adore him, that the rest of society has a chance to view him that way too. And the other millions of men and women who have been impacted by incarceration.
Thank you. You talked about the media's role as far as how we see things and the paradigm in which we look through things. At this podcast, we always talk about how people get their second chance in coming home and some of the issues that they face when they come home. But we know specifically that 1 in 3 men of color will have been incarcerated at some point in their lives here in the United States. That's part of the bigger carceral problem here. And we're 25% of the world's incarcerated population, and that seems to continue to rise. After your experiences on this project and other projects, you talked about Intent to Destroy, how it triggered some things in you. What do you think would be the solution for, or what media could do to balance our nation's desire to over-incarcerate as well as looking at the disproportionate criminalization and incarceration of Black males and Black females, who are the highest rising carceral population right now? Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like there's so many things that we can do, and I think one of the things that we can do is start with the approach that I'm taking. I think one thing is even with my team, I tell my team all the time, we are changing language. For so long, I've been calling Martin, in write-ups or other people ex-felons. And I'm like, no. Now that I know, as the leader of this team, that's unacceptable. Now that I'm learning, I'm gaining knowledge and information. I am not some guru and not wildly versed in terms of
the world of incarceration, but there's now things that I know starting with me, I can shift, and I'm powerful enough where I know me alone, I have the power to shift the planet. So if I can start with changing my language, changing my perspective, changing my outlook, changing the way that I engage with a population that has been impacted with incarceration, I alone, with my power, can reach so much further. I can change policy. I can change the way government officials think. And look at the work that was done with Just Mercy. I love the way producer Scott, how he handled that whole thing with his impact work and going into prisons and like just going beyond the screen and pushing people and encouraging them to really rethink the way that they see people who have come through the system. And it's a big task, but like we just chew at what we can chew at and take it one step at a time. But I think it has to, the creators have to care. The people behind the camera, they have to first see formerly incarcerated people as human beings, as your equal, as like, I'd say all the time, we all have done stuff. We all have made horrible mistakes. Just there's a large portion of us that just have not gotten caught. That's it. That's the difference. But it starts with the content creators and like our paradigm and our perspective and our POV and how, because that's going to inform our characters, our creation, and what we put out in the world. And if we are not doing it with a careful, conscious, deliberate hand, we'll continue to get nasty stereotypes and negative images about the the current or formerly incarcerated population in the media and on our screens.
Wonderful. Thank you. Are you looking to produce any more projects in regards to the criminal justice system and reentry or reform, or some of my brothers and sisters say the abolitionist movement, the new abolitionist movement? Yeah. So are you looking to produce any more projects in this, or do you have any projects that you would think about that you'd want to do?
Listen, I'm the girl who does entirely way too much. So my goal is to focus on this one thing. I actually transitioned out of my job at Vice Media so I could focus. This project could get all of my focus, all of my attention. Because if I'm not just focused on this thing and I have 10% of myself in another project, then that's 10% of myself that's not going into this project, right? But now, after this project has been wrapped, released, out in the world, which we're thinking will be around spring of 2022, this is the current and formerly incarcerated population is a population of people who need advocates with power, the same way how BIPOC professionals need advocates with power, Latina professionals or people need folks with power. So I want to continue to do whatever that may look like, continue to do necessary work to liberate the necessary voices. Yeah, but in terms of like what that looks like right now, I do not know, because my brain is 100% focused in this and in a break and belonging.
No, that's okay. Well, that's good. That's good work, sis. Can you talk to us about what is the status of a break and belonging right now? How can the audience see it, support it? Like where are you at right now as far as a break and belonging?
Yeah, so a break and belonging is in advanced development. We are ready to go into production. So what that means is we are ready to put cameras up. we're ready to travel out to Indianapolis and Jacksonville to do our interviews and film our scenes. We need funding. We're getting ready to launch a really big crowdfunding campaign second week in February. So we're hopeful around that. So we're rallying all of our supporters and our family and friends and colleagues and peers, letting them know what's on the horizon and what's to come and what our financial goals are. But we need funding in order for us to move into the next phase. But we're ready to move into the next phase, and we've been building partnerships with organizations that we can connect with, where we can tap into their talent to hire formerly incarcerated people, to one, provide them with income and jobs, and two, expose them to career fields maybe they may not have been exposed to, specifically the entertainment industry. Other organizations that are focused on going into businesses to help the people who are running it redefine how they see formerly incarcerated people, which will then open up formerly incarcerated people to more employment opportunities. So doing a lot of on the ground partnerships and work with people and organizations that target and focus and love and care about formerly incarcerated persons. And also doing, I'm being very deliberate in my crew and my team, making sure that, my crew is reflective of the subjects, which are majority Black men, and I need to create safe spaces for them and where they can be open and vulnerable and share of themselves. So, spending this time to do the very deliberate findings of who works and who can fit into our mold, into our model. But that's where we are in terms of stages, and we need support with financing and funding. We do have a fiscal sponsor, so every donation, when gone through our fiscal sponsor, which is New York Women in Television and Film, is tax deductible, which is a great incentive. But yeah, that's where we are, and we're on every social media platform, ABIB the film, and then we have our website. Hold on, there's just a car, ambulance going by.
Oh no, it's New York City. I know how it is. I'm still that kid from New York. I know how it is.
So yeah, we're on all social media platforms, ABIB, the initials for A Break in Belonging, the film, ABIB, the film. And then we have our website, abreakinbelonging.com. So you can find us everywhere.
Oh, that's great. So ABIB, the film, abreakinbelonging.com. And if anybody's interested in donating, they would go to New York Women in TV and Film and donate through there to support the advanced stage of the project. Okay.
Yep. Or they can go, or you can go straight to abreakinbelonging.com and go to our donate page, and it'll reroute you to everywhere you need to go. We've made it very simple and easy for everyone to find. And look, all donations are not, I'm not making any money off this. I'm paying for a lot of this stuff out of pocket. So this is, all donations are going towards labor and equipment costs so that we can get into production.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you. So my last question for you is, how can the audience reach out to you and follow your progression and your future projects? Do you have your following on social media, or how do you want people to follow you?
Yeah, my handle, I'm on all social media platforms, at Shirley Vernae, V as in Victor, ERNAE. And I love engaging with people. I love talking with people. So if you hit me up, like, let's have some fun. Let's talk. If you have ideas, if you have, I don't know everything, and I know I don't know everything. So, like, you know, if you think that there's ways that I can even more deeply support, you know, this population of formerly incarcerated men and women, like, please shoot your ideas to me. Let me know your thoughts. I would love to talk, to collaborate. I am an open book.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Well, Shirley, thank you for spending time with us today on Second Chance Coaching. For our audience, do not forget to see A Break in Belonging, but before you can see it, don't forget to support it. So don't forget to go to abreakinbelonging.com, click on the donate button, and every little bit makes a difference, whether it be $1, whether it be $10, whether it be $10,000. You are supporting a great cause. You're supporting a great cinematic project, and I know that the final project will be great. Shirley, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thank you, Richard. I'm so grateful. You are phenomenal. I love your show. I love your voice, and I can't wait to hear this.
Thank you so much, and take care, and Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year.
Once again, if you'd like to work one-on-one as a returning citizen, coaching client, or you're the representative of a business, college, or university, contact me at richard@secondchancecoaching.com or via Instagram at @DrRichardLewis. Remember, you've been blessed to see another day. You've been blessed with your second chance, so make the most of it. I love you all. Take care and be well.